regular public meeting, November 19th, 2015. And Mrs. Saradaki, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Clancy?
Here.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Here.
Mrs. Shermer?
Here.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Here.
Mrs. Winkler?
Here.
Mrs. Cleary?
Here.
Mrs. Bauer?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Please join us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight, the board met in executive session and discussed personnel and legal issues. The announcement for this meeting was given to the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, the Scotch Plains Times, and the Patch. In accordance with Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools bylaws 0164 and 0165, I have an opportunity for the public to come to the microphone if anyone would like to speak. Seeing no one, we'll move on to committee reports. I know we had a lot of committee reports last week. Has anyone else met in between? Okay, so that brings us to the instructional update, Dr. Hayes.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mast, because this comes out of her area, to introduce our speaker for this evening.
Okay, well, tonight we have with us Jamie Akins. She is a writing workshop teacher at Park Middle School, and she has been very much engaged in staff development with both our middle school writing workshop teachers, because she was what would you call it? She was the first to use the Chromebooks as a pilot. So she really opened up that venue for us to study and be able to bring it up to scale. And this year she's been working with a turnkey group of elementary teachers. So they are learning about that environment to effectively use the Chromebooks that they've received in their classroom. So Jamie will give you much more detail on what she's been up to.
What I'd like to share tonight is the insight into the training that I delivered to elementary teachers.
You have to use the mic.
including the kids- oh, sorry.
You have to use the mic.
I'm sorry, how do I is it on? Does this work? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. So I wanted to share with you some insight into the training that the elementary teachers received on October 7th, so a little bit over a month ago. Two groups of teachers came and we met here, one session in the morning and one in the afternoon, and we went through launching the Chromebooks out into their classrooms, all the way down from the kindergarten level up through the 5th grade. And I wanted to share what I went through with them in order to get them comfortable with rolling out these new machines. And I opened the session with this quote: technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. Without this group of teachers that came to the session, we really wouldn't be able to effectively roll out these machines and get them into the hands of our students so they can learn to use them to enhance their learning. So I really wanted to instill within those teachers that they are the ones who are really going to take these machines to the next level with their students. I went over what they actually will be receiving. They received 1 or 2 tech tubs depending on what grade level they belong to. So kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers received 5 computers, so 1 tech tub. And 3rd grade teachers through 5th grade received 10 computers, so that was 2 tech tubs. So they have these containers in their classrooms that have charging and locking capabilities that they can use in their classroom all day long. And they also received a number of Chromebook projector adapters per building, which allows a teacher to hook up the computer to a projector screen, just like this one, so they can model effective instruction for their students. When I was meeting with them, I really wanted to impress upon them, what can you do with only 5 to 10 Chromebooks? Because in a classroom of maybe 25, even more students, that's not enough for one student per machine. So I really wanted to share with them some ideas for independent work, collaborative learning stations, group projects, and perhaps some computer centers for keyboarding skills. So we honed in on a lot of different types of activities and applications by going through the applications in the Google Drive. Every student has his or her own Google account, which gives them access to an online flash drive type of storage. Gmail, a calendar application. They really receive a lot of Google tools that they can use for their learning. We went over different web extensions that can enhance the use of the Google Chrome browser, since the Chromebooks operate purely on the Chrome operating system. And I also went over some different applications that they could search in the web store that are pretty subject specific, that can enhance their learning and really help them figure out how to utilize centers and stations for their various subject areas in their classroom all day long. And I provided a survey to the teachers last week, and they responded back with how they're utilizing the Chromebooks so far in their classroom. When I asked about which Google Drive applications they're using the most, the majority replied they're using Google Docs, which is a word processing application operating purely online, storage in the cloud, saves student work automatically. Students are able to collaborate with each other on there. They can all connect at the same time. The teacher can also be involved. So they're utilizing that tool the most. And then Google Slides, which is a presentation type of format. Google Forms, which is a survey, and Google Sheets, which is comparable to Microsoft Excel. So they're dabbling a little bit, but mostly exploring Google Docs with their students. But they're utilizing those tools to conduct research, to publish writing pieces, to enhance some online reading programs. They also access everyday math online. They share writing pieces with their peers and their teachers. One teacher shared that she shares it also with her co-teacher that she's in a classroom with. So this way there's not a disconnect where one teacher only has access to the paper. So if there's more than one teacher in the room, everybody has access to that piece. Centers, they're using it for keyboarding skills, enrichment activities for those high flyers that need that extra motivating support if they've completed their schoolwork. They're using it to provide feedback to their students in a very quick manner. Homework completion, and taking tests and assessments online. So in just a few short weeks, they've really taken these few tools that they've now been given and utilized them in many ways in different subject areas in their different classrooms. And in a survey, I asked a series of questions, this one being, do you find that the Chromebooks are easy to use? And the options were extremely, mostly, somewhat, or partially. And the majority here feeling that they're mostly easy to use. Some of these teachers are still getting used to them. And when you're thinking about kindergarten and second grade students, it can be a little difficult for them to operate a machine, especially because it's a little smaller. The keyboard is tiny and their fingers are tiny. And then do you find that the Chromebooks benefit the learning experience? Mostly, extremely, somewhat. So for the most part, these teachers are finding that there is benefit, and it is enhancing their learning and increasing engagement. 57.1% feel that it's an extreme enhancement to student engagement. And increasing resources. By having this direct connection to the internet, these students now have information beyond what's given to them in their classroom, and they can find it all on their own. So overall, the response is overwhelmingly positive in terms of the experience these classroom teachers are having so far with these few Chromebooks. They have 5, they have 10, but they're really maximizing a learning experience for their students. They did have some suggestions on how to improve the classroom Chromebook use, because it's always important to think about how we can take things to the next level. The big one was having more Chromebooks. Ideally, it would be perfect to have one for every student, and they've shared that, but they've also gotten down to a routine where they're sharing these tech tubs with one another and putting together a little bit of a plan or a schedule that who's going to have a group of them when, and they're really trying to work together to collaborate to maximize it for all students. They're interested in maybe some headphones so they can really maximize the use of center time. Printing abilities are in the works for these Chromebooks down in the elementary level. We're up and running in middle school, but we need to get up and running at elementary. They want more adapters so they can all project and display and model for their students effectively, and time to familiarize themselves a little bit more as teachers with the device so they can then make it an even better experience for their students. And opportunities to collaborate with not only their peers in their buildings, but also other teachers across the district to see how they're utilizing this tool and how can they also incorporate some of their ideas into their own classroom. So overall, really positive suggestions that could really take it to another level in terms of increasing technology use with their devices. some further training that we would like to provide to these teachers and that they're also interested in is giving them further instruction on the individual Google Drive apps and get them beyond just Google Docs, because there's so many more possibilities when they tap into the Google Forms and the spreadsheets and the drawing application. It's really just scratching the surface by using the Google Docs application. They want more training on the Chrome extensions, Google Classroom, which is Google's online learning system, and it really streamlines the Gmail and the Google Drive usage in order to maximize classroom instructional assignments being completed. Google Drive sharing and organization, digital citizenship, internet use, assistive technologies, which can support students with disabilities and with special needs, and some more subject-specific Chrome applications so they can push it beyond just maybe reading and writing mathematics types of apps that can support student learning. So they're really very interested in furthering their knowledge, and I'm so excited to continue to share my own knowledge with them and help them take the next steps in that. And Dr. Mass asked me to speak about what are students really gaining from the Chromebooks, and I thought about it, and I was going to prepare my own answer, but then I turned to my students that I have. I see 96 sixth graders every single day, and I only asked 42 of them, and I said, just give me like one idea each, it's totally fine. And they provided me with a slew of information and ways that they felt that they were gaining so much from just these devices. And I won't share all of them, but some that really stood out. High-tech 21st century knowledge on computers, broader resources for our classes, preparation for future careers, knowledge of how to use new websites, communicating better and faster with peers, wanting to work harder. Putting these devices in their hands just made them that much more motivated and wanted them to really put their best foot forward through their work. They're gaining typing skills through their constant use, their organization of digital files, how to talk appropriately on the internet with others, more knowledge of how to help my peers with the computers, and it goes on. They feel like they're gaining time because they have quick access to their documents and the internet, and not just at school but at home by having their Google applications. Many students, at least of my own, they've downloaded the apps onto their cell phone. They have it on their tablet. They take it with them when they're on the way to soccer practice or they're sitting at the dance studio in between time that they have classes. They're learning how to handle devices properly and delicately. They're in the future, they're thinking all of their school will be on computers, so they feel prepared. They're gaining the ability to do more in their other classes. It's so common for them to use computers to type up a paper, but now they're being able to push their learning in any other aspects as well. How to fix our own problems. They're becoming their own troubleshooters. They no longer need their teachers to really answer their own questions. Everything is now just Google it, and you can find the answer yourself. They're learning how to act on social media, just not on the Chromebooks. Their digital skills they're taking and applying in class, they're also utilizing outside, which is really fantastic to see in this generation. Properly writing constructive criticism so it doesn't offend anybody. How we can use technology in our regular lives. Multiple means of connecting with others. They're gaining so much from such a small tool, and it's really so powerful. And if my sixth graders are feeling this already at 11 years old, I'm sure that by the time I get the next batch of sixth graders, and even sixth graders that are currently third graders, this list is going to multiply, because putting these tools in children's hands sooner is really going to maximize their potential as 21st century learners. So they're gaining so much, and you don't even realize it day to day. And it's really nice to see. And overall, the message that's coming from not only the teachers but the students is that these devices are helping us to communicate, collaborate, and connect with one another, student to student, student to teacher, and it's really just making magic happen in the classroom and all online. And it's a really wonderful thing to see. And I just am looking forward to where it's going next, and I'm excited to be a part of the journey, and I appreciate all the opportunities that Dr. Mast has allowed me to have in working with the elementary teachers. And that's really kind of where we're at right now, and we'll be planning different future presentations for these teachers so we can maximize their own potential in their classrooms. So, thank you. Any questions? I'm so sorry.
These kids are going to be too smart. Right.
So we thank you very much for your enthusiastic report and update, which I'm sure was catching to the teachers too. And I'm sure that the board has probably some comments or questions that they would like to ask? Mr. Whitehouse?
I have one, and I remember a few years back, something that you had said made me think of it. You had said that things are faster now for the students, and because they can Google it themselves. You have sixth graders. Oh, yeah, you have to stand by the microphone so that, yeah, well, just so that the home audience can hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm
Your
learning.
answers are more important than
I'm
my
sorry.
questions. And I don't know if this would be for you or Dr. Mast, but I do recall somewhere, I guess it's in our curriculum, making sure, finding sites that are reliable. By the time they've gotten to you in sixth grade, do they know that, or is that part of what you're teaching them?
No, that's part of what I'm going over with them. And
Okay.
as soon as we begin our essay unit is starting in 2 weeks, we're going to go through Google Scholar and how to know that a source is credible. Typically, by the time they get to me in sixth grade, they've had minimal computer exposure. They've used it really just to type up writing pieces that they're exploring in their writing classes. Since this is their first experience with every single day, they have this device. I feel like it really falls on the sixth grade responsibility at this time to make sure that we're covering all of that. And we talk about the different, Wikipedia, how it comes up, but is it really credible because people can edit it? We go through all of that. We watch a lot of videos. YouTube has some great ones, and Brain Pop, and that's a resource that we have available at Park. And really honing in on what's a credible resource and how do you know, and evaluating our sources.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's sixth grade-ish is where
Sixth
we're-
grade-ish,
Okay.
yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. That was all I had.
Are there other questions or comments about the Chromebooks?
I have a question.
Yes,
When
Mrs.
you-
Shermer.
Thank you. When you only have 5 laptops in a class, and so what do you do? How do you separate the rest of the class, and how do you teach the others while the other, how do you do that?
So that becomes a very careful balance of small group instruction. In thinking about it from a writing aspect, what I would do if I only had 5 computers in my classroom. I'm fortunate enough to have a full cart of computers. However, I would perhaps be pulling a small group of students that I'm maybe reviewing a writing strategy or skill with them, while others are moving ahead perhaps on the computers and they're working on a draft, and others might be visiting a learning center where they're doing independent research on something that they're looking for to add into their own writing piece, perhaps through different resource books that I might have in the classroom, or they might be looking through mentor texts. So it becomes a little bit of a 3-ring circus almost, in terms of planning what's this group doing, what's that group doing, what am I doing with these students, and what are they doing, and how am I monitoring on the computer. And you almost have to have eyes everywhere. It becomes a lot of planning and thinking ahead of how that device is going to be the most impactful for the students using it, but how am I still engaging the other students in the learning so that they don't feel that they're missing out on something with that piece. So it can become a little tricky, but I think a lot of the elementary teachers are using them to facilitate center type of work, where they're doing perhaps different activities, vocabulary-based, word sorting, and then they have perhaps an online application that's allowing them to practice different spelling techniques and strategies in that sense. So it becomes a little difficult, I would say, at times.
So how often does a student get to use a laptop when you only have so few in a room? I mean, you just count them out every day. Okay, it's your turn. It's your turn. Oops. Like-
I would expect that it rotates. There's a rotational basis,
get a chance.
perhaps. So this way, all students are getting a chance at least once a week. I would imagine, perhaps that could happen. Again, I'm not in the elementary setting, so I'm not sure exactly how that's rolling out. I don't know, Dr. Mast, if you know about how they're managing that.
Yes, in fact, the center type of pedagogy is something that we really prefer at the elementary. To have whole class instruction doesn't really differentiate based on the needs. So, students get equal access, and as Jamie pointed out earlier, that it is flexible, because though there's only 5 or 10 that are designated to a given classroom, they can move from classroom to classroom. So third grade teachers can collaborate to say, today I really want to do whole class instruction, if there was a compelling reason to do that. But the flexibility of the center type of instruction is something that we really value.
And it's also important to note that that strategy in terms of having children work through centers actually begins in kindergarten and to some degree in pre-K. So even before the additional Chromebooks were brought online, teachers were accustomed to working through center structures because it provides the opportunities for the students to engage in more hands-on learning and more collaborative learning with one another, as opposed to just sitting and listening to the teacher. So this adds another dimension to it in terms of how they access the Chromebooks and then use those. But it's the kind of fluid operation where at any point in the day, they may be going into center activities where kids will cycle through.
Yes, Mrs. Clancy, Dr. Clancy.
I just had a question. You had, one of the
Sure.
slides said that some of the children have their writing published. Where is that, or how does that, do you mean in school
So
newspapers? or-
in sixth grade, we utilize Google Sites to publish student work. It's private and protected through the district, since their Google accounts are only accessible to anybody with a Scotch Plains domain email address. So when we publish, we're not publishing on these sites where the entire world can see, but we're publishing on a website where the other students have access to each other's work. Or in publishing in the elementary level could mean a finalized printed out copy that they're putting together in a classroom book that they can have as a resource for each other in the room.
So sixth graders at Terrell could read what
Mhm.
a sixth grader at Park.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Yes, Mrs. Winkler.
I have just one thing. I just want to thank you for sharing with our elementary teachers creative ways to use the Chromebooks so that they're not just using technology for the sake of having technology in the classroom. These are actually ideas for things they can do that are things they would be doing anyway. It just enhances the learning experience.
Exactly. It can't just be used as a substitution and never really pushing the learning further. It should always take the instruction to the next level and grant them an opportunity that they wouldn't have if it was normal printed paper or whatnot that they might be using in the classroom.
Anyone else? I was just curious, do any of the students ever say they're teaching their parents how to?
They show their parents. My students will come in and say, "Oh, I was showing my mom how to do this and how to do that," and "Oh my God, my dad had no idea that this was the." They really are taking ownership of the knowledge that they're gaining with their devices, because they think they know a lot of things when they come in because they have their cell phones and their iPads, but they're not using it academically. So it's a lot of light bulbs have been going off in the sixth grade at least, and it's really nice to see, and it's wonderful to hear them come back and say that they're sharing their knowledge with their parents and exploring that with them at the home front. And they sign on at night, and I receive emails from students, and they're accessing their work, and I can tell that they're working on their assignments more at home. You know, typically I say, you know, it's due in a week, and we'll work on it in class. And they usually only work on it in class if it's on paper. But taking it with them and having it on a device, it really just changes their motivation and increases it substantially, for sure.
Jamie, could you speak to how they use it in writing workshop to collaborate with each other using
yeah.
the Google Docs?
Yeah, absolutely. And the collaboration through Google Docs is changing the way students interact with each other and leave each other feedback. So we just moved through the writing process for a fictional narrative, and the students share their work immediately with somebody as they're drafting, which means someone else would receive their digital copy and be able to access it in live time, and they would share it and leave comments for one another back and forth on, you know, the structure of their writing or their ideas, and be kind of a part of their writing as they move through the process. And I'm also shared as well. So at any given point, there could be 3, 4, 5 people on one document sharing and working on this piece together. And there's a chat box option. So those students are having a conversation about writing, and I don't hear a thing in the classroom because it's all happening online after extensive training on how to properly utilize that tool and what's appropriate and not appropriate to use in school. But it's taking their work and turning it into something that is much more than what sixth graders, I feel like, have normally produced when it's only their eyes and my eyes looking at it. By sharing it through this Google account, they're giving it to so many different people. And now we're working in a PLC with myself and the 7th grade teachers in the 8th grade, and we're going to make writing buddies. So now my 6th graders are going to have a 7th grade buddy and an 8th grade buddy. So they're going to be in their documents as well, and they're going to be getting different peer advice from their grade level above them. And how fantastic that they're getting all of this feedback that they wouldn't normally get without that piece. That digital collaboration really just enhances the way that they're working, and that really increases their motivation to do a better job because they know that how many other people are looking at this all at the same time. And when you pop in on their document, it's like you're a ninja spying on them, and they get so excited, but they work so much harder and they care so much more, and it really is fantastic to see them help each other. And they sound like little grown-ups when they're talking, and they almost don't need me in the room. And it's really wonderful to see that 11-year-olds can really provide solid sound feedback for one another as writers. It's really fantastic.
I don't know if you've had any guests in the room or if they realize that adults are doing the same thing with Google Docs at work, writing grants or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's really just such a beneficial tool for anyone. And it's just fantastic that the students can connect and I can connect with them. And unfortunately, there's a parent block that I can't share it to them as well, but that's a safety feature that's on the Google accounts that, you know, unless they're a certain age, that it has to stay within the domain. But it's a way to protect, you know, their work, and they feel a little bit of a safety net there. But still is just a fantastic way for them to collaborate.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming, even though it's a rainy night. Hopefully the public...
I'm happy to be here.
Hopefully the public was listening and they could hear a little bit about this and the enthusiasm and the very authentic experience that the students are having with the Chromebook. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to add my thanks, Jamie, because it's amazing when you're in these classrooms and you see what's going on. The intensity with which students are engaged in their work is really remarkable.
Yes.
And it takes a shift for some of the observers to get on board and understand the new approach, because when you go in, it's not like there's the teacher standing in front of the room and all the attention's on the teacher. The kids are actively engaged in the work themselves. And the feedback in real time is really amazing. We had a group of educators from across different parts of the state come and observe the writing workshops at Terrell last year. And, you know, they were trying to assess the level of student engagement. And the typical markers that we would use were challenging for us because we couldn't necessarily see how they were getting the feedback in live time.
Yeah.
The teacher was roaming the room, had the laptop open, was actively giving feedback. The kids were communicating with one another. And all of this is going on in a classroom that sounds remarkably quiet.
Yes.
Because they're so engaged.
Exactly.
Not because they're not attending. And the other bonus to that, and the kids spoke about it, and thank you so much for bringing their voice to the table tonight.
Of course.
Was that it makes them more efficient.
Yes.
Because they're working in real time. You know, we're moving past. I have to write it all out in longhand and then type it over again, and
Yes.
it just amplifies their creativity. And the way in which they can really, truly revise their work as writers do.
Yeah, and many were sharing today, they felt it simplified their life because it felt that it was more naturally a part of the way that they operate at home because they are so digital. They have their devices. So it just felt that it was naturally integrated into their lifestyle at home, which was really wonderful to hear. And that they felt that it simplified and made everything easier and just more manageable for them, which in 6th grade, they have a heavy workload, and I can only imagine 7th and 8th, it's probably even more, and even down in elementary school, that this tool can even help minimize them and their stress level at the home front as well, which is very nice to see.
And I just want to thank you and commend you for the enthusiasm that you've brought and to your willingness to share with your colleagues.
Thank
because
you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
They really do appreciate learning from you, and they're so excited to be able to take this to the next step with the guidance and support that you so generously you give. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. It really makes me happy to share my knowledge with others. It's great.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So moving on to less exciting things, and some last week we did review these items in our agenda setting meeting. We did have 3 letters to the board, which we mentioned last week. They were all referred to executive session. One from Shannon Pacheco, one from Nancy Marion, and one from Leslie Franco. And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Tonight, I would ask that the board approve the out-of-district placements 1S as listed on the agenda this evening. These are for changes to placements for the 2015-16 school year.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
2S, I would ask that the Board of Education affirm the superintendent's decisions in the 7 harassment, intimidation, and bullying cases that were reported during executive sessions on October 15th and October 22nd.
So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
3S tonight, I would ask that the board approve the field trips as listed on the agenda. We did discuss these at our last meeting.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
4S, we have an addition to the agenda. We are looking for approval of the curriculum updates as released from the curriculum committee. We did one course last time, but we are also asking for this other course to be done. This is the corollary to this in our Spanish program for heritage speakers. This will be Spanish heritage speaking experience, past, present, and future for grades 9 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, Debbie, Mrs. Saradaki, it's a roll call vote.
Mrs. Cleary?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Dr. Clancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
And then 5S, I would like the board to approve the expansion of our boys lacrosse program to include a freshman boys lacrosse team.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, and at our last meeting, you did approve the winter guard position, so we appreciate that. And then moving on to personnel, I would ask that the board approve the personnel agenda as discussed in executive session this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's Mrs. Saradaki?
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Dr. Clancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Shermer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleary?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the, oh, I forgot. We have another opportunity for anyone from the public to come to the microphone if they would like to speak. Seeing no one, Mrs. Saradaki, if you would do the business functions.
Yes. 1 BUS, I'm asking for approval of the staff training on the report of the superintendent dated November 19th, 2015. 2 BUS, I'm asking for the board's acknowledgement of disbursement listings for the month of October 2015. 3 BUS, I'm asking for the board's acknowledgement of the receipt of the school district's security and fire drill reports for the month of October 2015. 4 BUS, I'm asking for the board's approval of the 2014-15 audit corrective action plan, which we reviewed last week. 5 BUS for the comprehensive maintenance plan and M1 reports was approved last week. 6 BUS are related services through private vendors. This is from First Children, Spectrum Consulting, Preferred Home Health Care and Nursing, Solient Health, and again, First Children. 7 BUS, I'm asking for the Board of Education to approve entering into a facilities use agreement with Behavior Therapy Associates for their summer high-step program at Coles School. 8, 9, and 10 BUS were all approved relative to the construction at last week's meeting. 11 BUS is award of bid for on-site construction management of the additional classroom projects in Evergreen and McGinn schools. This is a request for a proposal, so it does not have to be awarded to the lowest vendor, the lowest price, but there was no reason not to award to the lowest price. Both companies are reputable companies. And so the daily rate and the reason I'm asking for an approval of just a maximum dollar amount is because we feel that there's a good chance that most of the time we will use 2 hours a day on each site. There may be periods of time during intense construction where we would like 4 hours. So we don't have a fixed dollar amount at this point. I do think that the price will be less than $150,000, but I'm asking for the board's approval to transfer $150 from capital reserve for this portion of the cost. 14 BUS is acknowledgement of the bus evacuation drills that are conducted in the fall. 15 BUS is the maintenance agreement for our district printers. The cost is $1,833 per month, which is the exact same price that we paid for the school year 2014-15. This contract will end on October 31st, 2016. 16 BUS is acknowledgement of the board secretary, receipt of the board secretary reports, treasurer of school fund reports, and the budget adjustments for the month ending October 2015. 17 BUS is approving the bill list for the period of October 17th through November 13th, 2015, in the amount of $3,167,096.58. 18 BUS are for construction change orders, which we discussed last week. 2 of them from Spartan Construction on the Park Middle School waterproofing. Excuse me. There was an additional charge of $2,656. That was for additional cracks that need to be repaired in the foundation of Park Middle School. The second item, $9,917, should be a negative number. That is a refund to us of the excess contingency. On Kalin Heating for the rooftop HVAC units, that is also a negative amount. That is a refund to us for the excess contingency for the HVAC project on the high school. And 19 BUS is the New Jersey Achievement Coaches Grant. We're asking the board to accept funding awarded for the New Jersey Achievement Coaches Grant in the amount of $70,000 for fiscal year 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Comments and questions about any of the items that we're voting on tonight?
I would just like to say how nice it is to see the $70,000 grant coming in, and the refund of the heating units, which, thanks for that little negative sign there. Going in the right direction.
Yes. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll move on to board policies. Mrs. Winkler?
I'd like to move that the board approve second and final reading for adoption of the following board policies. Number 3212, attendance for teaching staff members. Number 4212, attendance for support staff members. Number 5305, health services personnel. 5306, health services to non-public schools, and the regs that go with that. 5308, student health records, and the regs that go with that. Number 5310, health services, and the regs that go with that. Number 8505, wellness policy, nutrient standards for meals and other foods. And I'd like to also move that the board approve rescinding the policy 1512, school level planning, because all of that is in other policies we have anyway. Oh, did I? 1522, excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, do we have any new board business? Other board business, requests to attend workshops? Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes, I received the email from Ray Penny about the special education training for the school board members that takes place on Monday, November 30th. Registration begins at 6, the program ends at 9. I'd like to attend that.
Okay, wonderful. We'd be glad to have you represent us. Anyone else? Workshop reports. I understand from Dr. Hayes, because I was unable to go to Garden State, that most of the discussion was around school funding.
Yes.
And an upcoming meeting with the commissioner and hoping to influence him about the situation with the cap and the negligible increases we received last year.
Yeah. Essentially, they were very pleased that they were going to be able to have a meeting with the commissioner. We know that the school funding formula has not been fully funded pretty much since its inception, and they're hopeful that the state legislatures will take a look at that and help demarcate how much money actually comes in the way of state aid that finds its way to the classroom versus how much state aid gets earmarked out of the state budget towards pensions and health benefits, et cetera. Because in reality, districts are not seeing much of any increases in state aid for the most part. We're just all very grateful when the funding remains flat. We'll see. It's good that they've got the audience with the commissioner, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. 2OBB is the award of professional legal services for special education. Would anybody like to make the motion here from the Personnel Committee, maybe? Dr. Kulikowski?
Okay, I'd like to move that the Board of Education approve the following resolution. Whereas there exists a need for legal services in special education, and whereas the Public School Contracts Law, NJSA 18A 1 requires that the resolution authorizing the award of contracts for professional services without competitive bids must be adopted publicly. Now therefore be it resolved by the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education as follows. Number 1, the President and the Board Secretary are hereby directed to execute an agreement with Schwartz, Simon, Edelstein, and Celso, LLC, for the 2015-2016 school year at an hourly rate of $165, resulting in a total estimated annual amount of $60,000. Number 2, the contract is awarded without competitive bidding as a professional service under the provisions of the Public School Contracts Law because the legal service by the lawyers is a recognized profession, licensed and regulated by law.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we come to the approval of the minutes. Are there any
So moved.
abstention? Okay. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any abstentions or?
Yes, I need to, for the October 13th meeting.
Okay.
Which meeting?
October 13th.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we have a last opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone who would like to come to the microphone? Seeing no one, is there anything for the good of the order?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
A week from today.
Yes. Okay, so safe travels, everyone. Enjoy time with family and friends. We'll see you again in December. December, I believe, 2nd. Oh, 10th, December 10th. All right. Meeting is adjourned.